Hey folks, welcome back to True Crime Stories, where we cover the most thrilling true crime stories. Before we get going, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for me. Thanks. And now let's get into today's story.
All right, so are you ready to dive into some true crime today?
Always.
Well, today we're going deep into the death of Elsie Bennett.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, so picture this. Crescent Cove. It's
Charming seaside town.
exactly. Harbor winds, salt air, that kind of place. It seems almost too perfect.
But there's always something lurking beneath the surface.
Right. And it's not perfect
Yeah.
because this quaint town holds a dark secret.
A dark secret, huh? Okay, I'm listening.
So Elsie Bennett, she's like a pillar of the community, fiercely protective of Crescent Cove's heritage.
Okay, I'm getting a picture of her.
And she's found dead at the harbor
Oh, no.
during the annual Wind Festival.
So like a big public event.
Huge. Lots of people around.
Okay, and what makes this a deep dive? What's suspicious about her death?
Well, the initial assumption was accidental drowning.
Makes sense, right? I mean, she was an octogenarian, a busy festival, it could happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't be unheard of.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
and this is where things get interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
A torn piece of fabric was found near the scene.
A torn piece of fabric. Okay, that does make things a bit more complicated.
Yeah, it's like a red flag in a sea of calming blue.
So tell me more about this fabric.
Well, it turns out it matches a designer shirt
Designer shirt, all right.
worn by none other than Lucas Grayson.
Lucas Grayson. Remind me who that is again.
He's that wealthy entrepreneur who wanted to build that controversial luxury resort, the one Elsie was totally against.
Ah, right. The one that would, change the whole character of Crescent Cove.
Exactly.
So Elsie's death, it conveniently removes the biggest obstacle to his project.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it was just a coincidence or something more,
Sinister. Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Okay, so we've got a possible motive right off the bat.
Right.
But let's rewind a bit.
Okay.
Back to the Wind Festival.
Okay, paint me a picture. What's the scene like?
It's in full swing.
Hmm.
Music, food stalls, families out enjoying the day.
Sounds lively.
It was. And Elsie is last seen alive having this heated argument with Lucas.
Oh, so they actually had a public confrontation.
Big time. She was accusing him of betraying the town's history, selling out for profit.
That's intense. Was it just a war of words, or was it more than that?
Well, witnesses described Elsie's words as like daggers.
Daggers. Wow. Okay, so there's some real animosity there.
Definitely. And it highlights this deeper conflict brewing in Crescent Cove,
Between tradition and progress, the old guard versus the new.
Exactly.
And Elsie, she represented the heart and soul of the town.
She was not going down without a fight.
And that fight, it seems, may have cost her life.
So after the argument, witnesses saw her storm off towards this secluded rocky cove, like visibly upset.
Okay, so she's alone, she's upset, and she's headed towards a secluded area.
Yeah, not a good combination.
Definitely not. And then what happens?
Shortly after, someone hears a scream.
Uh-oh.
And then Elsie's body is found.
So we go from a public argument to a secluded area to a scream and then a body.
It's not looking good.
Definitely not. What was the immediate reaction in the town?
Well, think about it. This isn't just another news story. This is Elsie Bennett.
Right. She was practically an institution in Crescent Cove.
Exactly. Everyone knew her, respected her. Her death sends shockwaves through the town.
Yeah, I bet. Mourning probably quickly turned to suspicion.
Oh, absolutely. Fueled by all those whispers of foul play,
Small town dynamics at work.
Right. Everyone's connected, secrets run deep, everyone's got a theory.
It's a perfect breeding ground for speculation.
For sure. And then enter Detective Maya Torres. She's a newcomer to Crescent Cove, and she's tasked with leading the investigation.
Ooh, a newcomer leading the investigation in a town where everyone knows everyone. That's going to be tough.
Talk about walking into a minefield.
Exactly. She's not only dealing with the complexity of the case, but also navigating a community where loyalties run deep and people hesitate to talk.
It's going to be a challenge for sure.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does the initial evidence tell us?
Well, we've got that torn piece of fabric, the one that places Lucas at the scene.
Right. But what else? There has to be more.
Oh, there's more. The toxicology report, the one that analyzes substances in the body, showed traces of an unknown narcotic in Elsie's system.
An unknown narcotic. Now that's interesting. Doesn't automatically point to foul play, but it definitely raises questions.
Yeah, like how did that drug get into her system? Was it accidental? Was she drugged?
It's another piece of the puzzle.
Then there are those footprints found near the harbor, matching Lucas's shoe size.
Getting more and more suspicious.
Right. And to top it off, Elsie's phone records show a bunch of messages to Becky Caldwell.
Becky Caldwell. Refresh my memory again.
She's a marine biologist, close to Elsie.
Ah, okay, right.
And in these messages, Elsie's expressing all these fears, a sense of isolation, like she felt threatened.
So she knew something was wrong, but she wasn't sure what or who to be afraid of.
Yeah, it's like she sensed danger lurking.
That adds a whole other layer to this.
Okay, so we've got Lucas in the spotlight, possible motive, potential evidence linking him to the scene, but it's still early.
Right, we need to consider all the angles.
Exactly. And remember, this wouldn't be a true crime deep dive without exploring the full cast of characters.
Let's bring on the suspects.
Starting with Finn Monroe.
Finn Monroe, who's that?
He's a local handyman struggling to keep his business afloat.
Struggling business, okay.
And he's got a complicated history with Elsie.
Ooh, complicated history. Tell me more.
Well, it's more than just business competition.
I figured as much.
You see, Elsie's family, they've been in Crescent Cove forever, and their history directly impacted Finn's own family.
So we're talking generations of, bad blood, family feuds.
Exactly. And there's this sense that Elsie and her family always had the upper hand.
Okay, so there's resentment there, maybe a motive.
And let's not forget, Finn's alibi for the crucial time frame is shaky at best.
Shaky alibi. All right, red flag number 2.
He claims he was at the food stalls, but no one can confirm his whereabouts. Oh, and he had access to tools and materials that could have been used to harm Elsie.
All right, so we've got potential motive, a shaky alibi, and access to the means.
Finn's definitely on the radar.
He is indeed. Who else is in the mix?
Well, there's Becky Caldwell, the marine biologist who was close to Elsie.
Right, the one who received those messages from Elsie.
Yes. And it turns out her alibi has some gaps, too.
Gaps, huh? Tell me more.
She left the festival for a short time.
During the critical time frame.
Potentially.
And
While some people saw her before she left, her return to the festival raises questions about what she was doing during that missing time.
so we have Lucas, the wealthy developer with a motive, Finn, the resentful handyman with a shaky alibi, and now Becky, the close confidant with a gap in her story.
This is getting good.
It is. But wait, we can't forget about one more group.
You're talking about Elsie's family.
Bingo! The Bennett family. Fiercely loyal, deeply rooted in Crescent Cove.
They definitely shared Elsie's resentment towards Lucas.
Saw him as a threat to their heritage and traditions.
Yeah. They were all at the festival, too,
Blending right in with the crowd.
making it pretty difficult to track their movements.
So you're saying we can't rule them out completely?
Absolutely not. They had motive, opportunity.
And when you think about family dynamics, especially with grief and a thirst for justice mixed in, things can get complicated.
Yeah, you never know what might be brewing beneath the surface.
Okay, so I've got a tangled web of potential suspects, each with their own secrets and possible connections to Elsie's death. Where do we go from here?
This is where the investigation heats up.
I love it when things heat up. Spill the tea. What
Yeah.
happens next?
Well, it all starts with a series of crucial discoveries that shift the focus.
Crucial discoveries, all right. Lay it on me. What kind of discoveries?
Well, remember how Elsie was adamant about protecting Crescent Cove's history?
Yeah, she was a fierce defender of the town's heritage.
Well, it turns out she wasn't just talking about sentimentality, she was sitting on a secret.
A secret? What kind of secret?
One with the potential to shake the very foundations of Crescent Cove.
Now I'm really intrigued. What's this secret all about?
Well, Elsie's family had been in Crescent Cove for generations.
Right, deep roots.
And over the years, she had amassed this collection of historical documents, maps, artifacts.
Wow, like a local history gold mine?
It is. But hidden among those treasures was a bombshell. Evidence that some of the land Lucas Grayson was planning to develop for his resort wasn't actually his to claim.
Wait, what? So Elsie had proof that could have derailed the entire resort project.
Exactly. This wasn't just about preserving the character of Crescent Cove anymore.
This was about legal ownership, about exposing a potential land grab.
With far-reaching consequences.
This changes everything. It means Elsie wasn't just a thorn in Lucas's side. She was a serious threat to his entire plan.
Absolutely. And it explains why she was so determined to fight him, even when it seemed like a losing battle.
She was holding on to a secret that could bring the whole house of cards down.
Exactly. But how did this secret come to light? Was Elsie planning to expose Lucas?
That's the question, isn't it? And it leads us to even more intriguing developments. Remember those frantic messages Elsie sent to Becky, the ones expressing her fears and isolation?
Yeah, they were pretty cryptic.
They were, and it turns out they weren't just about the stress of fighting Lucas.
There was something more.
Elsie was planning to meet with a group of people, all of them opposed to the resort, on the very night she died.
A secret meeting. Under the cover of the Wind Festival. Sounds like something out of a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it?
What was she planning to reveal at that meeting? Was she going to present her evidence? Rally the troops for a final stand against Lucas?
We may never know for sure because that meeting never took place.
Hang on, are you saying Elsie was silenced before she could expose Lucas and his scheme?
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? And remember that torn piece of fabric we talked about? The one that placed Lucas at the scene?
Yeah, it seemed like a small detail at first.
It did. But now it becomes even more significant. It's no longer just circumstantial. It's a potential link to a motive that goes beyond mere business rivalry.
So Lucas had a reason to want Elsie out of the picture, and he had the opportunity.
But the question remains, did he actually kill her? Or is there something more to this story?
I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out.
Remember, we were talking about, did Lucas actually kill her? Or is there more to this story?
Yeah, and all those potential suspects.
Right. So let's go back to Finn for a minute.
The handyman. Okay.
So remember how he was struggling financially?
Deep in debt.
Deep, yeah. Like losing everything kind of deep.
So a desperate man, maybe an easy target for someone like Lucas.
Oh, absolutely. And Lucas had a lot to lose if Elsie exposed that whole land scheme and that conspiracy she uncovered.
Right, right.
So Maya, she digs a little deeper and discovers that Lucas had approached Finn.
With a proposition.
You got it. A way out of his financial mess.
I bet it involved Elsie.
You bet, right? Lucas was desperate to silence Elsie.
You wanted her gone.
Gone, yeah. And he offered Finn a substantial sum of money to make her disappear.
Disappear. It's pretty vague.
It is, right? Like, did he mean scare her off, frame her for something? Or was it something even more sinister?
So many possibilities.
We don't know for sure.
Okay, so we have Finn, driven by desperation, lured by Lucas's money, agrees to play a role in silencing Elsie.
Sounds about right.
But how does that explain her death? The autopsies, it was drowning, right? Not like a calculated murder.
Right, and that's where things get really, murky.
Murky, no, how so?
Well, think about it. The Wind Festival. Crowds, noise, distractions everywhere. Finn, probably a little emboldened by maybe alcohol.
And fueled by his resentment towards the Bennetts.
Oh, yeah. So he confronts Elsie near the harbor, wants to scare her, make good on his deal with Lucas, but things get out of control.
He didn't intend to kill her.
That's what he claims. Says there was a struggle, a push, and Elsie falls into the water. With all the commotion, no one notices. No one hears her cries for help. By the time her body's found, it's too late.
So a tragic accident fueled by desperation, manipulation, and a long-standing grudge.
A perfect storm of unfortunate circumstances.
But what about Lucas? He orchestrated this whole thing. Does he get away with it?
Well, that's where the case really hinges on Maya's ability to prove his involvement.
She has Finn's confession, right?
She does, but he's a desperate man. Easy to discredit. She needs more.
I'm sure she finds it.
She does. Remember Becky in those recordings?
Yeah?
Well, one of them captures Lucas's threat to Elsie.
The one where he tells her to back off.
That's the one. Now, it's not a direct admission of guilt.
But it's something.
It is. It's enough to corroborate Finn's story and establish Lucas's intent to silence Elsie.
That's huge.
Right. It connects the dots.
So what happens next? Does Lucas finally face justice?
Well, it all comes down to this really tense trial.
Okay.
Finn, he's racked with guilt, facing a lengthy prison sentence.
Right.
So he agrees to testify against Lucas.
In exchange for a reduced charge.
Exactly. Becky's recordings are presented as evidence.
And the whole thing becomes a battleground of truth, power, and manipulation.
Oh, it was a media frenzy. Small town of Crescent Cove thrust into the national spotlight.
So what's the verdict?
After weeks of testimony, the jury delivers its decision. Lucas Grayson is found guilty.
Guilty. Of what?
Not of murder. Involuntary manslaughter.
So they acknowledged his role in Elsie's death, but didn't believe he intended to kill her.
Exactly.
So a partial victory, but not the full justice Elsie's family and friends are hoping for.
Right.
What's his sentence?
A few years in prison?
That's it.
Yeah, a slap on the wrist compared to the lifetime of pain he's inflicted on Crescent Cove.
And what about Finn?
He gets a reduced sentence for his cooperation and testimony,
Okay.
but he's a broken man, haunted by his actions.
It's a reminder that desperation can drive people to make terrible choices.
Absolutely. And that even the most idyllic settings can harbor dark secrets.
So what happens to Crescent Cove? Does the town heal? Does Lucas's resort get built?
Those are questions for the community to grapple with.
To find a way forward from this tragedy.
It's a case that reminds us justice isn't always black and white.
And sometimes, even a guilty verdict leaves behind a sense of unease.
Of unfinished business.
This case is full of twists and turns and hidden motives.
Absolutely. It shows how the truth can be hidden beneath layers of complexity.
And now it takes, a keen eye, a sharp mind to really uncover what lies beneath the surface.
You gotta keep asking questions.
Exactly. Okay, so where were we with Finn?
We were talking about Finn and his connection to Lucas.
Right. And his, financial troubles.
Yeah, deep in debt, remember?
Oh, yeah, he was really struggling.
Like on the verge of losing everything.
So it sounds like Lucas might have seen an opportunity there.
Oh, absolutely. Lucas was desperate, to keep Elsie quiet.
Yeah, especially with all that stuff she'd uncovered about the land and those secrets about the town.
Exactly. So Maya, she's digging deeper into all of this, and she discovers that Lucas had approached Finn with a proposition.
Oh, I bet I know where this is going.
A way out of his financial mess.
Right. It had to involve Elsie somehow.
Oh, it did. Lucas offered Finn a bunch of money.
To do what? Get rid of her?
Yeah, to make her disappear.
Disappear. That's kind of vague, isn't it?
Super vague. Did he want Finn to just scare her off? Frame her for something? Or was it, something worse?
It's chilling to think about.
It is. We don't know for sure what Lucas intended.
So Finn, desperate for money and probably not thinking straight, agrees to help Lucas.
It's a classic case of manipulation, right?
Yeah. But how does that explain her death? I mean, didn't the autopsy say she drowned?
It did, and that's where things get complicated. You gotta remember, the Wind Festival was going on.
Crowds, noise, chaos.
Exactly. And Finn probably had a little too much to drink, feeling bold, He confronts Elsie near the harbor.
Intending to do what? Just scare her.
That's what he says. He wanted to scare her, fulfill his end of the deal with Lucas, but it all went wrong.
He didn't mean to kill her.
That's his story. He says there was a struggle, he pushed her, and she fell into the water. With all the commotion, no one noticed.
No one saw. No one heard her.
Not according to Finn. By the time anyone found her, it was too late.
So it was an accident.
That's what Finn claims. A tragic accident fueled by a lot of bad choices.
And a whole lot of desperation and resentment.
Absolutely. But what about Lucas? He's the one who set this whole thing in motion. Does he get away with it?
He has to face some kind of consequences, right?
Well, Maya knows he's involved, but proving it is a whole other story.
She has Finn's confession.
She does, but Finn's not exactly a reliable witness, He's desperate, he's got his own problems. It'd be easy for a good lawyer to discredit him.
So she needs more.
Much more. And luckily, she finds it.
The recordings.
The recordings. Remember Becky and those conversations she recorded with Elsie?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out one of them captured Lucas threatening Elsie.
The one where he tells her to stop interfering.
That's the one. No, it's not a confession.
But it's pretty damning.
It is. It backs up Finn's story and shows that Lucas was definitely trying to silence Elsie.
So does Maya arrest him?
She confronts him with the evidence. Of course, Lucas denies everything, says it's all a big misunderstanding.
But Maya knows better.
She does, and I think she knows that Lucas is starting to realize he's trapped.
So what happens next?
Well, the case goes to trial, and it's a tense one.
I bet.
Finn, full of guilt and facing a long prison sentence, agrees to testify against Lucas.
To get a lighter sentence for himself.
Exactly. Becky's recordings are played for the jury.
And, what's the verdict?
The jury finds Lucas Grayson guilty.
Guilty. So justice for Elsie.
Not exactly. They convict him of involuntary manslaughter.
What does that even mean?
It means they believe he caused Elsie's death, but they don't think he planned to kill her.
So he's responsible, but not, fully responsible?
Yeah. It's complicated.
It sounds like a compromise verdict.
It does, doesn't it?
So what kind of sentence does Lucas get for that?
A few years in prison.
A few years. That's it.
That's it. A slap on the wrist compared to the pain he caused.
And what about Finn?
He gets a reduced sentence because he cooperated with the investigation and testified.
Right.
But he's a broken man, haunted by what he did.
It's a sad reminder that even good people can make terrible choices when they're desperate.
And that money and power can corrupt even the best of intentions.
So what happens to Crescent Cove after all this?
That's a good question. Can the town heal from this tragedy?
Does Lucas's resort get built?
Those are questions that the community has to wrestle with,
It's a reminder that justice isn't always simple or satisfying.
and that sometimes even a guilty verdict leaves behind a sense of, well, of unfinished business.
It sure does. Well, that's our deep dive into the death of Elsie Bennett. It's a story full of secrets, lies, and a fight for the soul of a town.
We explored the evidence, we talked about the different motives, and we followed all the twists and turns in this really captivating case.
We want to thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope you'll join us next time for another deep dive into the world of true crime. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and remember that the truth is often hidden beneath the surface, just waiting to be uncovered.